chemistry at many community colleges. He has achieved Advanced Communicator Gold, Competent Leader, visited 50 different Toastmaster clubs. I know when I asked him this last week, it was 49. And as Area B4 Governor, he will present 1 out of 3 portions of his qualifying speech for the Speakers Bureau. The title of his speech is Innovative Technology and Beyond. Please welcome Hermander.
Amazing! Where did all these items in this room come from? They didn't come from nowhere. They didn't come out of the blue. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. We have all these things because scientists and researchers have diligently worked hard and are still working hard in laboratories to continue to improve the quality of our lives. Over 100 years ago, we didn't have television, radios, computers, handheld calculators, and many other devices that we enjoy today. But we can have even more sophisticated devices than what we use each and every day of our lives. Supporting scientific research and changing the world for the better can improve the quality of our lives. In the early days, people survived by hunting, gathering of food, providing shelter, providing clothing. And as time progressed, people started studying the natural world. And the field of science grew out of the speculations of many people's minds. Growing bodies of knowledge were soon added to the scientific literature. It wasn't until the 17th century where the emergence of new ideas in chemistry and great strides in technology has taken place. Well, what exactly are these new discoveries? Well, one of them is materials. What are these materials made up of? And these materials started in the early days. Alchemy was invented in Europe during the Middle Ages. Alchemy, which is old-fashioned chemistry, alchemists would try to take cheap metals and transform them into gold, but they never succeeded. But they did come up with new ideas and new substances that we still use and know today. For example, earth, fire, water, and air. And they also refined existing laboratory techniques such as distillation and extraction that we still use today. Their ability to try to transform substances into gold never succeeded. And to this very day, we call that vitalism, which is not true. There's no such thing as taking a supernatural force and transforming it into a brand new substance. But technology has changed and the view of chemistry changed as years progressed. Materials were invented. Metals, non-metals, ceramics, plastics, rubbers. And these materials are made up of certain different elements. And these elements make up the atomic world. The periodic table of elements consists of the atomic world. The periodic table of elements consists of the majority of them being metals on the left-hand side of the chart, and a small portion on the upper right-hand side being non-metals. And in between the metals and non-metals, you would have semi-metals or metalloids that can act either as metals or non-metals. And these elements in the atomic world govern the behavior and personality of each of these elements. For example, if you take sodium, which is a silvery light metal, and you react it with greenish chlorine gas, the physical and chemical properties of two different elements are different. But when you combine them together, you form a new compound, sodium chloride, or better yet, table salt. And that new compound has completely different chemical and physical properties. Scientists and researchers know these chemical and physical properties, but there are still other magical properties that we still don't even know about. Now that's a simple example, sodium chloride, that you may have learned in your chemistry class. But what would happen if I take nonmetals such as carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and I combine them into a huge supersized molecule. In fact, polymers consist of super huge sized molecules. And the properties of polymers have enriched our lives to this very day. Plastics, ceramics are made up of polymers. These polymers are more than just a string of elements all tied together or a network all bonded up together. Polymers have specific memories, just like different metals have specific memories. In fact, let's take a look at one metal that has a specific memory. Nickel-titanium alloy, which is called nitinol. Consider a pair of eyeglasses. And if you were to rearrange those eyeglasses and twist like a pretzel and take them to an optometrist, he can reform the original shape of those eyeglasses to its original shape if those eyeglasses was made up of nitinol. And we can apply that to car bumpers and to other items that can be dented but refixed only if we spray water on them. That hasn't been done yet, but that is one scientific project. The bottom line is we need to support scientific research so we can enhance technology and improve the quality of our lives. Madam Toastmaster.
Is a guy we all know and love, Bob Freel. He's going to evaluate the speech by Hermander.
Before I get started, Mr. Timer, let me kind of set this speech up a little bit. The speech that Evaluted gave today was part of a 20-minute speech he's going to be presenting to the Speakers Bureau. The Speakers Bureau is an organization that helps people, one, prepare to be public speakers and also represent the district outside of Toastmasters. With that in mind, I'm going to be a little bit tough on him today because he will be giving this speech not only in front of me, but several people like me, poor guy. So, what I want to do is to give him some suggestions. If you're a new Toastmaster, don't think we would necessarily do this to you, but he came here specifically to get some really tough feedback, so be aware of that. Innovative technology and beyond. I liked the way that you opened with amazing. Then you said, where did the devices come from? I thought that was great. Then you started babbling about, I don't know what it was, and as you did that, it kind of went down into nowhere where I couldn't hear you. I thought the opening line itself, where did these devices come from? Boom, stop, pause. Maybe give us a very short story about something that's really startling based on your background that we would really find interesting. The reason being, you're trying to give us a technological speech, and most of us aren't technological people. And that's the problem with tech speeches, is that sometimes a lot of you got to think about your audience. Because, write these three words down. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? This is exactly what they would tell you at the Speakers Bureau. If you don't answer that question right away, then you're going to start losing your audience, and particularly with technical speeches. I felt during this speech that I was on the outside looking in. In other words, you weren't emotionally grabbing me in any way. You were giving me a lot of information. I'm going to go about 3 to 5 minutes, okay? So just be aware of that. So you didn't give me any emotional buy-in whatsoever, why I should care or feel emotion. Most of us make decisions on speeches because we've gotten some kind of emotional attachment to the process. I wasn't sure what you wanted me to do, think, or feel about the information. So what? Keep that in mind. You had a tendency to pace. And while you were pacing, you were looking at this wall, and you were looking at that wall, and you were totally losing eye contact with your audience. And once you do that, two things happen. One, you lose the emotional contact, but you also lose any kind of physical contact. So you have to start rebuilding that all over again every time you turn back to look at them. You had a few stories, but here again, when you're telling a story, you're still doing this. What I would suggest that you do is you start back here, and if you're going to be talking to both sides of the audience, just a slight turn of your body like this. Okay? Then when you're going to go into your different stories, you step forward to the side, first story. Maybe just a slight step, second story. Slight step, third story. Now when I'm getting ready to go back into the technological part of my speech, you can take a slight step backwards. If there's something you really want to emphasize, what is it that you want us to walk away with? Then you have to step forward towards the audience and boom, give them whatever that pot of gold is that you want them to walk away with. These are areas that are extremely important. If you don't do that, you won't pass. And nobody's passed in the last 4 months. So it's a tough audience that you're dealing with. So this is why I'm a little harder on him than I would normally be with anybody else, because he's trying to get to the professional level. So this is why we're a little bit tougher on him. Other than that, I think you've got a good idea. But with a technical speech, you've got to find a way to get an emotional connection. Otherwise, you turn the audience off. Mr. General Evaluated.
I would just say one thing, the evaluators did well. I know that Bob's thing had to be a lot more cutting. One of the things that evaluator has to do, they